if you don't mind. We are going to welcome everyone, for sure, and thank you very much. We are going to start with Javier Arias, Machine Learning for Dummies, and after that we are going to have an use case for GeoDjango in a company working with maps and GeoDjango. And these two guys, Dome and John, are going to explain that after Javier. And that's it, enjoy.
Do you hear me well if I speak like this?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, or less? Okay, thank you. This could be a day in your life. This could be today. It's about time to leave the office, and your phone tells you the best route to go home. It's fun because you never told your phone where home is or what is the appropriate time to leave the office. In fact, on Fridays, the phone tells you the best route to go to your parents' home, because on Fridays you visit your parents. You go to the parking and you are a happy Tesla owner. Not that everybody of us can be it, but let's imagine for a minute. In the last version of the car, there is an autopilot feature. With autopilot, the car is able to keep the lane by moving the steering wheel, keeping the speed and the distance with the rest of the cars. And not only that, the car is able to learn from its own experiences and from the experiences from Teslas from around the world. Hopefully, if you don't use the autopilot feature, if you use the autopilot feature, you will not end up like this other Tesla user who was driving manually. Okay, little bit of a spoiler, but okay. So you arrive home and you want to play some music, but you don't feel like choosing it. So you trust on Spotify to play some music for you that you actually don't know, but you are going to like. Then you browse your photos, and they are very well organized, like here, with architecture and apps and different tags and categories, but you never tag these photos. It was Flickr that was able to look what's inside your photos and tag them accordingly. These things are happening every day to thousands and probably millions of users. And all of them have something in common. Do you know what it is? It's machine learning. Machine learning is here, it's everywhere, and it's going to stay. In fact, it's going to be the next revolution. So, what is this talk about? First, I'll try to explain why machine learning is so important for us as users, as engineers, for companies, and for the world in general. And I will talk about my journey with machine learning. 6 months ago, I didn't know anything about machine learning. My name is Javier Arias, and I've been working as a backend engineer for many years. But 6 months ago, I didn't know anything about machine learning. When I started, I thought that it was like very difficult to get started with, and I was amazed, and because of the very nice resources and tools that we have to learn and use machine learning, especially with Python, of course, but also with other programming languages. There are very nice courses to get started with it, and it's not that difficult to get started. Being an expert, of course, is another matter, and it takes years. But you can do pretty beautiful things with just a little bit of learning, very easy to learn. I'll explain also some very basic concepts of machine learning, and we'll see a small sample of code. So machine learning is going to be important. And one of the first questions that came to my mind when starting with machine learning is it that artificial intelligence is really intelligent? Because when I studied it, it was like very crappy. I'm talking about 20 years ago or so. And I was wondering if it's really intelligent, that that machine learning thing, deep learning, and all these things is really intelligent? And the answer is that for many concrete tasks, machines and algorithms are already better than us. One example of that is image recognition. ImageNet is hosting a yearly challenge on machine learning for image recognition. During the last years, with the adoption of deep learning, the performance of the algorithms have been improving a lot. And in fact, in 2015, the best algorithm was able to detect objects better than people. Something similar happened to chess almost 20 years ago when Deep Blue defeated Kasparov at chess. But there are other games that are much more complex than chess. For example, the game of Go. The game of Go has so many movements that the number of movements is bigger than the number of atoms in the universe. For this kind of game, it was thought, for this kind of game, you need a lot of intuition to play. And for that reason, it was thought that machines could never win the champions. Until this 2 months ago or 3 months ago, when AlphaGo, an algorithm by Google, defeated the world champion. And this is happening in more and more every day, and it will happen more and more in the future. And it has a name. It's singularity, which is the point in time when machines will be more intelligent than us. Talking about singularity, many people are already making very apocalyptic predictions on that moment, but I'm not optimistic, and I don't share these concepts. I don't share these opinions. Now I want to talk with you about my journey. As I told you, 6 months ago I didn't know anything about machine learning. And of course, I'm not an expert. Probably many of you here know a lot more of machine learning than me. But I thought that it would be very difficult to start, and it was not the case. I'll try to explain a little bit what I did to learn, and there are other options, but the message is very clear for me, is that it's not that difficult to get started. To learn, I started with massive open online courses that are those courses that you probably already know and probably have been taking some of them, with videos and exercises, and at least in machine learning, there are some superstars making the courses, and there are different platforms. So you have to do your research and choose which one is better for you. In my case, I did Udacity's Introduction to Machine Learning, which is very well organized, and it's using Python and Sklearn. Sklearn is one of the most popular libraries for machine learning. There are others that it's very, very popular. We will be talking about later. The teacher is Sebastian Frank, who was working at Google, and the course is free. And the best for me is that you can do it at your own pace, because other courses have deadlines, and I cannot stick with them. So, but you have to look which one is better for you. For me, this was very nice because you don't have to go into the deep details of mathematics. They explain you at a very high level. They give you the mathematics, just intuitions, and you play with the algorithms. You do exercises from the very beginning. So one thing caught my attention regarding the course, and is the subtitle, which is Pattern Recognition for Fun and Profit. So we have been discussing already about the profit and why it's so important, but what about the fun? So the course starts like this: two friends sharing some glasses of wine, not bad for a start, and it ends like this: the same friends, more wine. So it seems that machine learning can be fun at the end. Currently, I'm doing this course. You can do it at your own pace. So it has been some weeks since I started. But okay, I will take over sometime soon. And it's about deep learning. Deep learning is a type of machine learning where the algorithms can use different processing layers, like something like neural networks and these kind of things. It's by Google, and it's using Python and TensorFlow, which is the library from Google for deep learning. But there is no wine for the moment in this course, but I will keep looking for it. Okay, so I try to explain. Of course, I'm no expert, and I try to explain very high-level concepts in machine learning, and I'll try to give you some insights on things that, for me, are very important and many times are overlooked or not mentioned when you do courses or read books about machine learning. Then we will do an exercise with Python, and let's see how it goes. Okay, so when we use machine learning, we want to solve a complex problem. We have something here in the middle, and we have data here. When we are in machine learning, data is named features. So we feed our features into something. Let's see, we will see what it is. And we get a prediction. For example, we put an image, and we know what character is in the image, for example, or what objects, or whatever. So the first approach is programming. All of us here know how to program. When we program, we have to understand or have the knowledge of our problem, and then by coding very little steps into the machine, we explain the machine in baby steps how to solve the problem. The thing is that for very complex problems, this doesn't scale. For example, with expert systems, which are just a set of rules, this doesn't scale. I don't mean in the technical sense, I mean in the knowledge sense. Let's imagine that we have to implement a system for medicine, for example, and we want to talk to a doctor. The problem is that he will give us something like 1,000 rules, for example, and probably, since medicine is not an exact science, many of them will conflict each other. And if we go to and talk to another doctor, it will be worse. And also, when from the ideas in the expert, in the brain of the expert, to the code, there are many translation steps where you can lose information. So programming doesn't scale for very, very, very complex problems, such the ones we want to solve with machine learning. So how is different the approach for machine learning for solving these problems? Instead of coding the rules step by step, what we do in machine learning is show the computer and the algorithm some real-world data, and we let the algorithm learn from the data. So the algorithm sees the data and comes to its own conclusions on how to apply this knowledge for further information in the future. If we think about this, it has huge implications. And the implication is that since we don't have to understand the problem we are solving, the machine can solve for us problems that we don't know how to solve. And even they can do these things better than us. There is an amazing example of this. Kaggle is a platform for machine learning problems where different companies and organizations post problems or challenges so that people can solve them. Many of the challenges have a lot of money for the winner. And Merck, which is a pharma company, posted a challenge on predicting the side effects for some medicines given some molecular activity. The problem was like something very specific and very complex at the same time. The thing is that the winner team did a better job than the laboratories from Merck. And they did it only in 4 weeks using machine learning. But the most beautiful thing from my point of view is that nobody in the winner team had any previous background in medicine or chemistry or biology. They were mathematicians, engineers, statisticians, and this is very powerful. So let's go in a little bit more of detail to how machine learning works. But still at a very high level. I'll try to explain you as if you were a kid. Okay, so our example will be character recognition. We will have thousands of images like this, and we will have the labels. The labels will tell, okay, this image here is an F, this image here is an E, this image here is an F, and some of them are very complex, and they are of different typographies, and we have thousands of them. So the first step in machine learning is getting our data. So we have our data, and we have our labels. Not that all types of machine learning have the labels, but let's imagine for a moment that this is the case. If you want more details, you will have to go to any of that amazing process. But for the moment, we will have the images and the labels. So this blue image is an F, this yellow image will be a G, the green one an F, and so on. Second step is to choose an algorithm. And there are many different algorithms, like linear regressions for vector machines, decision trees, neural networks, naive Bayes, and many others that are not here. Some of them are very well suited for some different problems. So you have to choose one or many that can be good for your problem. This is part of the art of machine learning. The second thing is that these algorithms have many configuration and tweakings that you can do so that you can do better predictions. And this is also part of the game, playing with that configurations. For the moment, we will pick the simplest algorithm, which is linear regression, with the simplest configuration, which is no configuration, and we will train it, which is the third step. The third step is training our algorithm. We picked one algorithm, linear logistic regression, and we will show it the data. This image is an F, this image is a G, and so on. In some way, it's like teaching a baby to read. We are showing the data and telling, okay, this is a J, and he will learn to read our images. So the next step is to get the predictions. Once our algorithm has been reading and we have been teaching it, we will show some new image, and it will tell, okay, this image here is a D. But there is a tricky question here. The question is, if that letter really a D or not. For this we have different tools, and we will see them later. And now we will talk about the tools. One of the things that I was amazed was the courses, but the next thing is the tools. There are many tools from programming languages, such as R. Python is one of the most popular, maybe the most popular language for machine learning, but you can use R, which is also very popular. And there are even algorithms or libraries for almost any language you want to use. There are neural network implementations for JavaScript that you can run in the browser, for Go, for probably any language you want, there are implementations. But these are the tools I've been using during the courses, and since this is the Python group, I would be recommending these ones. Regarding Python, I don't have to explain that it's a very nice language, and as always, it's batteries included. There are many tools, from frameworks, libraries, to the notebook, which is very useful when you are playing with that data. You can use it together with Matplotlib to show and get insights from the data. So there are many different tools that come with Python that make it very useful to solve machine learning problems. One of the frameworks I've been using, but there are many others, is sklearn, which is also open source with Python. The documentation is wonderful, and you can use it not only to have a reference of the library, but also to have a reference for the algorithms, for example. It has support to the complete life cycle of machine learning, from feature engineering, which is massaging and preparing your data, to different algorithms and the validation of data to check if the predictions are good or not. And it has different data sets. If you want to play, you don't have to get your own data. There is data inside the framework, so you can play with it, and you don't have to worry about getting data to use it. I've been using also TensorFlow, which is the implementation, is the library from Google for Python and for deep learning, and it can be run in mobile phones, in servers, in desktops, with GPU, with CPU, and it's very nice and it's very popular because it's Google, so no more reasons. It's Python, of course. Okay, so now we understood more or less how machine learning works at a very high level, and some of the tools we can be using to solve problems. And I'll show you now the implementation of that example, implementing a character recognition example. I never did image processing, but it would take me weeks of learning and implementing to do that object character recognition, to know, okay, this is a G, this is an F. It would be very difficult for me, and probably for many of you if you want to do it programming. But we will solve it with 5 lines of code. So let's see them. First, we will get the features with labels. This is the data. We will choose and configure an algorithm. Will be logistic regression, no configuration, the simplest one. We will train the algorithm. This is teaching the baby to read. And we will do predictions. And at the end, we will validate the results to check if our predictions are good or not, because we have to validate them. If we don't validate them, we don't know if we can trust that predictions. So the first thing, we have, remember, thousands of images with labels. The first thing we do is to split our data set in 2 different data sets. One is for training. This is the data we will be using to teach the algorithm to read. And this part here, we will use it to check our predictions are good or bad, to validate our algorithm. So we will be using sklearn function, train, test, split. It's very easy. We say, okay, split our data set and labels. We will give the training size. This is this size here, because the size matters in this case. And we will give it a random state, which is a constant. It's like funny, okay, if you want something random and you give it a constant, the idea is that this random state with a constant will give us different images from the whole data set, not sequential images, but something random. But by giving this constant, the selection of images, the random selection of images will be always the same. So this way we can compare different algorithms, different configurations, and so on. So with this we have our data set splitted. And this is the most complicated part of the algorithm to understand. Because now what we do is initialize our algorithm, logistic regression, no configuration. We do the fit. Fit is the training. And for the training we will use the training data set and the training labels. And that's all. We have already teach our algorithm to read. We do one prediction by just calling the predict function over the test data set or over new data that is coming for our production system. So the question is, how good is our prediction? And we will use the accuracy score. There are different scores for validating your predictions, and there are different ways of doing it. I probably couldn't explain you now another one, so this is the simplest one, is the one I choose, but there are many different ways to validate your. Once you have done your prediction, you have some test predictions, and then you call just the accuracy score that is going to compare the labels of the test data set with the labels of your predictions. So it will check, okay, the first letter you predicted a D, and it's really a D. Okay, good. Second one, it was an F, and you predicted a G, so that's bad. And it will give you the percentage of accuracy of the number of predictions that are good. And when we were splitting the data set, I said that the size matters. As our training data set is bigger, the accuracy will be growing. Okay? So probably we want to train our algorithm with a lot of data, but maybe not too much. We will talk about that later if we have time. So with these 5 lines of code, we got almost a 90% of accuracy. 5 lines of code, simplest algorithm, no configuration. This is like the hello world of machine learning. And you can get much better numbers with different algorithms and configurations. So you can improve it by massaging your training data, which I didn't explain it, but is normally the most difficult part, and it's a science by its own. You can choose different algorithms and configurations. In fact, sklearn has a way to give it a set of configurations for one algorithm, and it will train all of them, check the accuracy, and it will tell you the best configuration for that algorithm. So you don't have to care about that. Good. Okay, so I was too optimistic with the time today. I'll try to run a little bit faster, but raise your hand if you have any question, or do something like this if you want me just to skip because maybe it's too much. Okay. The question is, we've seen already the machine learning algorithms as a black box. And it was beautiful because we did something useful, something that was very difficult for me to implement, and we did with just 5 lines of code. So at this level you can already, with more knowledge, of course, you have to learn more, but you can do beautiful things. But how does it work in the lower level? Because machine learning is no black magic. It's about mathematics. Okay? And I studied, my last course in mathematics was something like 23 years ago. Maybe that's some people say I'm a senior engineer. Maybe they want to say an old engineer. But I'm not going to bore you with the mathematics. I will try to explain you a little bit how this works in the underground, the lower level. I'll try to explain you the linear regression, which is the simplest thing possible to predict house prices. So we have the size of a house and we have the price. Of course, this is not a real example, because in a real example we would have a lot of data. But this would end up in a multidimensional space, and it would be more difficult to us to understand. For a machine, it's just a matter of computing time, but for us, it's easier to understand this way. So we have this data. This is one house of this size, and this is the price. Okay, easy. This is our linear regression. It should really be aligned, but okay, you can imagine this should be straight. But this is our train algorithm. It's something like this. You can see here that the algorithm is capturing the trend, is generalizing the data, so that when a new house comes here, we can predict more or less this will be the price. Okay, so how does this works? How the training works? This line is probably the simplest formula you can get, is m times the size plus n. So we have to find out in the training which one is the correct m and n to find the best line here. This algorithm works like this. It starts with a random line, something like this, and this is a very bad fit for our data. So it's going to try to measure the error for our data points, and it's going to try to minimize the error. And it's going to do it in different iterations. The second iteration will be something like this, and in the third one, probably it would be something like hundreds, but would be something like that. So this is the way machine learning training works. Of course, this is the simplest algorithm, but this is the idea for the majority of algorithms. You have some data, you have some algorithm, and you want to minimize the error to get the best generalization of your data. Also, as I said, this is a linear regression, which is a regression problem. Regression in machine learning are the problems where you have some data and want to do a prediction on that data. There are also classification problems. Classification is when you have some data and you have to decide for new data if it's here, it's blue, or it's red. We can imagine that it's blue, but the algorithm does this thing. So be it classification or be it regression, separation or prediction, what machine learning does is to find the boundaries in our data. It tries to generalize it. Probably it's not perfectly mathematically accurate, but this is the idea. Machine learning captures the trends in your data, tries to generalize it. So, going back to the accuracy, we had 89% of accuracy before. We should go for 100%. Why not? It should be better to go to 100% than to 90% because it will be more accurate. So we do our first prediction, and this is our algorithm. It's not bad, maybe 30%, we can do it better. So we improve our algorithm, we tweak it, we play with the data, it doesn't matter, but we get something like this. It's something like 75 or 80%. It's much, much better. But what if we go for 100%? I want the 100%. So we tune our algorithm, we play with the algorithms, and find one that it's 100% of accuracy. So if you look here carefully, our line is over all the data points. So if you validate with your data, it will be 100% of accuracy. But is this algorithm good? No, it isn't, because if there is a house size like here, the price will be this. So if your algorithm is performing very well with your training data, but is performing very bad with your real data or your test data, it's a smell of a problem. Your algorithm is not generalizing the data, is not capturing the trend. And this problem has a name, which is overfitting. Okay. So this is everything. Let's do a quick recap. Machine learning is here, and it's around us. Probably, even if we don't know it, if we are using it, it will be very important during the next years. And we have the right tools to learn and to use it. So use machine learning for your own profit, and of course for fun as well. Thank you. I don't know if there are any questions. Please, not about machine learning.
After doing these courses and so on, how you start to work with real examples? You find examples or competitions, or
you can sklearn, for example, have different data sets. For example, there is one very similar to this one of the object characters. There is one example. There is one data set for house prices as well. These are like the very typical examples. And there are many data sets around in the world living. You can download them. If you do image recognition, you can go for ImageNet, for example, and there are millions of tagged photos. There are Kaggle competitions and other competitions in the courses. The nice thing of the courses is that they are very practical. So you are coding, maybe in the first half an hour or in the first hour, you are already coding. At least in the Udacity one that I did, you do something like 20 minutes of videos, and they give you a very simple sample of code, which is very similar to that one. And more or less that. If you want to play with it, there are many, many ways. Okay, so thank you very much.